this time, Martin Odegaard.
Zinchenko from Ketia, it's in, it's four. Martinelli tiptoeing in. Predatory, perfect. There is a gorgeous arrogance about Arsenal now.
It really is. They are enjoying every second of this.
Hello and welcome to Not Another Arsenal Podcast, aka the Hector Bellerin of Arsenal Podcast. My name is Mike Hers, your host. Today, boys, we're going to talk about another disappointment in preseason. Hold on to your horses. It's more craziness, more experimenting, I'm going to say, on the behalf of one Mikel Arteta, and more shenanigans regarding penalties, which admittedly, Chris, I was unaware that they were going to take penalties, and I turned off the game minute 93. I thought that was the end of it. So, boo me. That is for sure.
First, do you mean we're not gonna talk about just the penalties today?
We're not going to talk about just the penalties. No,
yeah.
Unfortunately, that is a big negative for you. As always, first and foremost, the one and the only introduction for tonight, because it's a two-man show. Chris, welcome back, Chris. How's everything going?
Thank you, sir. I feel like I've been kidnapped and sent to a Spanish-speaking country because I log in, I see that the episode is in Spanish. I'm on a podcast with only one other person. This person speaks Spanish. We're the Hector Bellerin, who's Spanish, of Arsenal Podcasts. We play a Spanish team today. So I did the only thing I knew to do. I made a Mexican dinner and I'm drinking Mexican beer just to lean into it. I wish that I would have taken Spanish in high school so I could speak Espanol with you, Mike, but I don't. So you're going to get me speaking English in the best way I possibly can as a consequence. But yes, I'm doing well. We miss our mate Kelly tonight. He decided to become an MLS stan. Not Miles Lewis Skelly, but MLS as in the Major League Soccer here in the US, and dipped out. So it's just the two of us. Sorry, guys, but hoping we can make it worth your while. How about you, man? How are you?
Everything's fine. As I was just telling you, I had a busy day for my day off. I hate that, man. You ever make it to the weekend, you're like, or in my case today, Wednesday and Sundays, or I have split days off, and I make it to my Wednesday, and I'm like, last week I had to spend a lot of time at the DMV, and this one I was like, cool, I get to wake up and do nothing until 2:00 in the afternoon. Lie detector determined, my friend, that was a lie. I was a very busy man. I was on the YouTube being a part-time plumber. I could say I successfully navigated the issue without, creating too much chaos in the household. So save myself some moolah for sure, because plumbing ain't cheap over here in the States. That is for sure.
Especially in California.
Especially in California, but all while having the game on, because, damn it, Arsenal, you got me. I forked over the $13-14 after the conversion rate. I bought the package, Chris. I don't know if what means you took in watching the game, but I went through the Arsenal.com and there was a package because it would have been a little bit more expensive if you bought two individual games. So I already got the Emirates Cup roped in and ready. So because Lord knows I like myself a trophy. And I mean, if we win the trophy in the Emirates Cup, that's season done for Mikel Arteta. We don't have to worry about that anymore.
You wanted to pay as little as possible to see us lose. I get it.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. It always has a different feeling when you pay to watch something like that. So we'll see how that plays out. Good thing for me, it's just two games.
That's true. By the way, BX reminded me that Bellerin got red carded today in a scuffle between Betis and Como. What a debut game for him as the mascot for our little podcast here. I mean, he's doing us a favor by, acting like a hard man versus doing the things he normally would do, which I'm not going to get into. But I think everybody who listens to this podcast on a regular knows our feelings about Hector Bellerin. So
he's trying to win over Kelly. That is my best.
He did his Sergio Ramos, his best Sergio Ramos impersonation, right?
Yeah, so just a heads up, dear listeners. First half, we're going to chat a little bit about the Villarreal game. Second half, we will be taking a few questions that we got off of the Twitters, and my buddy Ryan texted me. He's a podcaster himself on Loose Cannon, so we're going to answer some questions. And right off the bat, Chris, when we're going to get into these starting lineups for Villarreal, I am going to ask your 2 cents here because we also have 2 questions from Gunnar Expert referring to the actual starting lineup. So maybe we get this ball rolling, and we might take care of those two questions just because starting lineup is kind of the name of the game right now, so that we don't repeat ourselves too much. But starting lineup versus Villarreal. Hey, surprise, surprise, Gyökeres started. Be it because of the absence of one Kai Havertz, not entirely sure. Now, big one for me that still continues to shock me, Chris. Norgard continues to accumulate more minutes than Zubimendi and start over him nearly every single preseason game thus far. So I'm genuinely curious to see what's going to happen versus Athletic Bilbao. But thus far, that's our starting lineup. Ben White seems to be the starter right now. Timber seems to be coming back from his injury. Saliba, of course. Kivior covering for Gabriel. I'm going to get this right. Miles Lewis-Skelly, not Ainsley Maitland-Niles, as our left back. And I think the biggest variety for us is the three midfielders, man, because, I mean, I think that front line might be our front line versus United. We'll see if Kai Havertz is healthy. But talk to me about the midfield for me, because we got Waneri, Odegaard, Merino, instead of our, I'm going to say traditional, if you will, Odegaard, what should be Zubimendi on paper, at least what the expectation is, and Declan Rice on the left.
Yeah, I cannot imagine that Arteta put that starting midfield out as anything other than seeing what different combinations look like. I don't think that was ever a serious attempt at seeing how that would all fit together in an actual game that meant something, i.e. at Old Trafford, because you have two very good out of possession midfielders and off the ball midfielders. I guess Declan Rice is quite good. Marino is quite good on the ball in the final third, but Norgard is, more of a defensive shield in front of the back four. Really good at intercepting the ball. Not great on the ball. It must be said. Waneri certainly is a good dribbler. I think he actually had quite a good game, but those three together, just there's no balance there at all. And I think that was to platform the second half midfield, which was actually, I think, the midfield we'll probably see, which is Zubimendi at the base, Rice and Odegaard at least to start the season. I think my one question about the starting lineup is if you're going to start Gyökeres, and Gyökeres is really good in transition and getting balls fed to him through the lines in behind the back line, why isn't that second half midfield starting as opposed to the first half midfield with him? Because he didn't get any service. I mean, I think he had 6 touches in the box in total in the game, having played 60 minutes. And I would venture to guess that most of those came in the second half when Zubimendi came in for a brief time that overlapped him. But if you're going to play Gyökeres, you cannot play him in a situation where he's not going to get fed. He's going to be useless. He's not dropping deep. He's not a kind of a roaming 9 who's going to come collect the ball in midfield, spray it out wide, and then go make a run. He's going to be a guy that's going to want to run off the back shoulder of a center back pairing. So for me, the combination of Gyökeres starting and that midfield just did not work. And I can't imagine that Arteta thought it would, but for the life of me, I don't know why he experimented in that way, because it didn't make any sense tactically to me. If anything, you want to put those 3 out there with Kai, even though Kai wasn't available today. So yeah, I would have started that midfield we had in the second half in the first half with Gyökeres to see what kind of partnerships you could form, to see what kind of chemistry you could build. Because I think you put a progressive passer in Zubimendi, a progressive passer in Odegaard around Gyökeres, and now you've got something in terms of breaking lines, in terms of hitting the ball over the top and getting Gyökeres into space, which is where he's really dominant. So for me, it didn't work. I didn't really understand it. I made that observation at full time, put it on Twitter, actually got lots of engagement on it, a lot of theories as to why that was the case. I don't know what I'm convinced by, whether that was a training exercise and therefore it doesn't matter, to it was an experiment, to not wanting to give away any of our tactics too early because we know that United's probably watching and observing for match week 1 to see if they can learn anything about how we're eventually going to play against them. It could be any of those things. It could be none of those things. But for me, if what Arteta said in a post-match conference, I believe after the last game against Spurs, that there are no friendlies, there are only tests, and he really thinks about these as tests. For me, we failed the test today. I just don't think it was good enough. And so if you believe what he said, I think we have to see the performance in context. I don't want to go overboard. It's preseason. It doesn't mean anything in terms of the table. But I just can't imagine that he thought that combination was ever going to work out.
Yeah, I guess playing devil's advocate here, Chris, my speculatively, my best guess is that it was a last minute kind of decision to start Gyökeres with the starting lineup, is what I want to say. And we all know that Kai Havertz has a little bit more chemistry, knows their players a little bit more, barring Norgard that just recently came in. But it sounds like they found this out yesterday, if not this morning, prior to the game. So I think it was a last minute thing. What I noticed strongly about the starting lineup is that the majority of players that started didn't start versus Spurs. And I literally think this is it's a mashup of players, maybe saying, yes, this is the template in which I want you guys to play, which is we're going to talk about system versus personnel right now. Again, I'm going to say again, because we spoke about it extensively last week for the left-hand side. I literally think this is a mashup of players that haven't played the lion's share of minutes, barring Saka and Saliba, who play pretty much are expected, I would say, to play every single game of the season. And then he just took it from there. So my best guess is Kai Havertz would have started, and minute 70, Gyökeres would have came in. So I'm not stressing so much as far as the starting three behind him. Here's my stress coming from. I say stress. There's other things in life, right? Here are my question marks about Mikel Arteta currently. We do seem, at the very least, to really start feeling like a one-trick pony. And if we do that one trick and it works, awesome. If we do that one trick and it doesn't work, it fails. It kind of falls apart. So both of the Villarreal goals, if I'm not mistaken, came from our right-hand side, their left-hand side. That's because we kind of tend to push everybody up and attack strongly on our right-hand side, leaving kind of that back four exposed and just gaps in which space in which wingers and midfielders could exploit us. And it's a recurring thing. And I just thought to myself, we have three different midfielders and a brand new striker that is nothing, and I mean nothing like a striker that we've had in the last decade at this point. He's nothing like Aubameyang. He's nothing like Gabriel Jesus, not like Kai Havertz, et cetera, et cetera. And yet we looks like that we decided to play the exact same way. I don't think Gyökeres, Šeško, or insert other popular striker names that are out there that are moving, right? Isaac. I don't think that's the system that kind of complements their skill set. I mean, he's a very fast forward. I think he was ranked second behind Haaland, if I'm not mistaken, Chris. So I'm just trying to, I'm sitting back, I'm observing, I'm trying to stay patient because I understand that it's preseason, but watching the exact same pattern of play to our right, in the ball to Saka, and if Saka isn't capable of taking on one or two players, creating a shot, we kind of start falling apart. So I'm kind of trying to figure this out. Like, Gyökeres isn't Kai. He's not Gabriel Jesus. He's not going to backtrack and play in the midfield. And in my opinion, nor should he. Not every single – that's my son. He's upset about Gyökeres tracking back too. Not every player plays the same. So I think the manager has to play a little bit different here. I mean, he got to figure out, hey, guys, what's the sense of urgency? How are we exploiting space? And where are the long balls? We spoke about that a little bit versus preseason versus Spurs, in which Raya would traditionally throw the hell of that ball towards the left-hand flank for Martinelli, and he was off for the races, right? And nobody else was with him. Well, now we have a speedster in the form of Gyökeres, and I want to see that space exploited. But seemingly, Chris, we attack on the right, we shift everything forward. Our left back is our left midfielder in Miles Lewis-Skelly, and we play in this way over and over. And look, I'm as you know, I jokingly said, I said, hey, I hate to be hyperbolic on Twitter, and I said Norgard has to be our captain. We need to loan Martinelli, and I started making all these wild assumptions. But all jokes aside, I am a little concerned about the pattern of play. And my concern about the pattern of play is that it's so consistent, it's predictable. And so no matter what pieces you swap out, it's not helping you out. And when you have such a maverick like a Gyökeres, he's the type of player that I expect the system to change for. Is that wrong of me, Chris, or am I onto something here?
No, I think our biggest issue and what's, I think, feeding the fact that we keep playing this horseshoe is that we lack central movement. If you just sit there and watch the game when we're in possession, right? We've got 10 players and then Raya behind the ball, all in the opponent's half, and you sit there and you stare at the back line. Look at our back line. It's Gyökeres, it's your 2/8s, and then it's your right wing and your left wing. Take a look at how much movement is happening in the center of the pitch, ahead of the ball. There's not much. And if you get players moving, rotating, making runs, becoming available for the ball, with Zubimendi behind and on the ball, you will get that penetration centrally. The problem is we don't right now. Everything is being, especially in the way that the opponent's playing us, because they're playing that kind of really narrow block to try and force us out wide, because they know that once we do that, then they're going to double up our wings and we're going to have to recycle the ball backwards. The minute we can make ourselves really threatening in the middle is the moment when teams have to take that seriously, and they can't just, cheat over and double up on our wings, or cheat over and know that the only person that can really hurt us is Saka, or the only person that can hurt us is a player that might run into the box for a header on a cross. So until we get that central penetration, until we get movement in the center of the pitch, and that means that our 2/8s also need to be doing movement as well, not just our center forward, we're going to keep seeing that. And I don't know if it's a system thing, if it's a personnel thing, Mike, honestly, if it's being instructed by Arteta. I have to imagine Arteta's a smart guy. He's not stupid. I mean, I don't take anybody's argument seriously when they call Arteta stupid. He's not a stupid guy. He knows football. I can't imagine that he is instructing his attacking midfielders to be stagnant. There's no way he's doing that, but I don't know how to explain why we lack that central movement and that central penetration, because once you do that, the defense has to collapse, and that's where you get space either in behind, or you get people close enough where you can hit some 1-2s, or you can get it out to the outside where there's going to be a lot more space. And I just don't know how to make heads or tails of that, to be honest. I don't know, again, if it's personnel, if it's system, if it's instruction, if it's a combination of all three. I don't really know. But I think that is, in part, the secret to how do we play differently this season in a way that gets us more touches centrally and therefore more shots on goal.
All right, so we're on the 50-50 on as far as the personnel versus system thing. But I do agree with you when people say, as I've said this in the past, where people go, if you had a word of advice to give Arteta, what would it be? And my mind goes to, he's forgotten more than I've learned, is where my mind goes to. So I don't think that he's being naive in any way, because I think that would be naive of me to make that accusation, to be completely frank. But he does seem to be kind of stuck in his way. And thus far we don't have the maverick, so to say, to break up play up until Gyökeres. And Gyökeres he's a striker. He's a very specific type of striker, and he's not Kai Havertz or Gabriel Jesus. So I think it's completely unfair to justify to criticize him currently if his bread and butter is not being, like, his superpowers aren't being exploited, so to say. So one thing that, and you and Kelly might have a little bit more of a positive reaction to Zubimendi than I am. Like I've said, I haven't seen enough of him that makes me feel like, oh, this guy's going to make a massive difference. But Dimitri S says in the live chat, I do think that Zubimendi will bring a lot of the varying our play. So it might be that he might help us transition and move the ball forward a little bit more, thus leaving a little bit more space for Gyökeres in the back. So fingers crossed. I don't want to leave the opportunity, even though we are kind of being slightly critical on the right-hand flank. I feel like I got to give Waneri his flowers. I was critical of the club for having him as backup last season and last summer, as you know. I do think that the comments about Eze potentially coming in are really interesting. I'm not entirely sure completely left or right because I'm not entirely sure he's going to be displacing and taking minutes off of Declan Rice. But dude, every time he plays, he shines seemingly, and he's getting a little bit more comfortable in the central role. He was one of the more standout players, in my opinion, in the first half. He did end up doing some really good through balls for Bukayo Saka. Unfortunately, didn't end up in goal, but he's a vibrant, youthful player, and hopefully he's 1 year older, and I'm sure they got him on some fitness plan. So I'm really hoping that he makes the next level jump as far as physicality and being able to cope with the schedule. And hopefully we get to see him a little bit more. It's just an observation that I had just in the first initial 45 minutes. I kind of don't. There's a little bit of a conversation going on referring to the Martinelli thing on the left-hand side. I kind of don't want to do this again because we did it for like what was supposed to be 5 minutes that turned into about 25 minutes last podcast. Do we sum it up for the time being? It's a system thing. It's a 50-50 system versus personnel thing on the left-hand flank, and we move on from the conversation, or do you want to address the left-hand side?
I think we'll talk more about this when we talk about questions, because there's a couple of questions about Eze, and I think that will implicate how we talk and think about the left-hand side. I think I can sum up at least Martinelli on the left-hand side, because that's what we saw today, except for a cameo from Madueke, is that I just don't know that the way we play and the way the way we dominate teams and the way we push them back into their own third suits his skill set. He's not a phenomenal dribbler. I mean, he was in the 12th percentile for dribbles completed last year. And I feel like he's only gotten worse. And I think that's in part because he has his head down. He's not great at beating a man one-on-one. I mean, he got dispossessed a few times today. But that's the game that's being required of him, to play wide and then to beat his man one-on-one. And he just can't do it outside the occasional touchline with pace and then a cross off his weak foot that doesn't really go anywhere. He was really good, and we talked about this last week, when he played more centrally. And there's a little green shoot I saw today with him and Gyökeres, because a few times Gyökeres was happy to inhabit that left-hand channel because that's where he's used to running when he played for Sporting, and Martinelli was more central. Now, Martinelli didn't really get much joy from that, but I think if Martinelli is going to be influential in this team, it's going to be when he has space, when he has less traffic in front of him to dribble through, and when he receives the ball in central spaces where he can get a shot off. That's where I think Martinelli can do some damage. And so if there's any hope for him personally, selfishly, to contribute this season, I think we're going to have to see more of him doing some of that interchange with the center forward. And perhaps Gyökeres is a good guy for him to do that with, because Gyökeres likes to go to that side. And so we saw a little bit of that today with Martinelli, not going over the top and saying that's the solve, or even that's a reason to start Martinelli moving forward. But I thought that was kind of interesting. So yeah, the left-hand side is interesting. We'll talk about it later. I think we'll talk about Madueke maybe a little bit later as well. Talk about maybe Eze and how he fits or doesn't fit on the left-hand side. But certainly, and if you looked at the stats, I'm sure it would bear it out. At least 2/3 of our threat, at least, is coming down that right-hand side, because that's where we have partnerships. That's where we have players in positions that fit their skill set. That's where we have an overlapping fullback. We have a lot going on the right-hand side. We have a lot less happening on the left-hand side. You're on mute, Mike.
BX Schooner just cracked me up. He said, I'll take a pacemaker Ericsson over Odegaard. Damn, that stung when I read it, BX. Wow. Okay, so I'm guessing BX is one of those like, hey, let's play Dalman and Waneri a little bit more than Udegaard. That one caught me off guard.
Eriksen's a central midfielder, for God's sakes. Wow.
And yet, yes, let's play him. Like, I will say, just in the Martinelli playing a little bit more central, I don't strongly disagree with you or BX, who was in the live chat suggesting it. I think Abreu, who is a Brazilian and avid follower of this Seleccionado, I do think that Arteta is so not thinking about Martinelli in a central role that once again, in the absence of Kai Havertz or Gabriel Jesus, he decided to put a left eight, aka Mikel Merino, as a striker for the last 20 to 30 minutes instead of just moving Martinelli there. So I think that kind of, in my opinion, gives you an idea of how Arteta sees Martinelli, and I just don't think he sees him as a striker. But I'm not completely against the idea, but
Nor
just
should
throwing
he.
that out there. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we'll ever see Martinelli start as striker unless we have a really bad injury crisis. I think as he continues to play, if there are opportunities for him to dovetail with a striker who is happy to switch every once in a while with him so that he's playing more central, if Martinelli has to play, I wouldn't hate it.
All right, fair enough. Before I guess we move on to the questions, Chris, we kind of wanted to do this 50-50 thing, keep it within an hour, but I do want to ask you two things that stood out to me. Kivior, doing great, continues to do great as a left center back. Hopefully we manage to keep him, but we do see more and more reports coming out that maybe Porto is interested in trying to knock on his door and drive him away.
I think they've given up on that, Mike. I think we've asked for too much from them. So
I like that for a change because he's one of those players that, like, I just feel like if he was a Liverpool player, at the very least, it would have been reported somehow at 45. So I kind of like the idea that that somebody walked away because we asked so much. And just going back to a conversation that we had like 5 podcasts ago where everybody was kind of losing their head about Mandueki. And I said, when you're going to like Mandueki is when Saka pulls a hamstring, and then nobody's going to complain that we have a quality backup. Exactly. I feel like Kivior is one of those players that, like he'll have one bad game, and because of Gabriel being such a talented center back, you kind of like, oh, Kivior's redundant, Kivior this, Kivior that, and then he has an extensive playing time, and you're like, holy shit, we can't let him go. And that is the beauty of having a rotational player at a very high level. That is, if you manage to keep him happy with the role in his squad, it's about squad depth. I was just thinking about this today, Chris, is that we, as supporters, we often look at things like black and white and say he's a backup. No, he's a second option. More so, yeah. It's not exclusively when one person is missing, the other one plays. It's an option for rotation. Well, how much is Mikel Arteta going to dip into that little piggy bank for rotation? I am so curious to see that now that they vastly raised the age on the bench and the floor. I'm super curious to see how much rotation is going to be involved with Mikel Arteta, or is he going to do this every single game for certain players type of thing? So I'm kind of curious to see how that evolves.
You can make the case that Kivior, if everybody's fit, is actually a third choice left side center back, because if Calafiori is fit, damn, is he another amazing option.
Is that the kit model guy?
Yeah, the guy with the long hair that we.
Oh no,
we
he plays
like once every 10 games. Yeah.
No shit.
If he's fit, he probably is second choice on the left-hand side, to be honest, just because I think he offers a bit more physicality in the box, and he's just as good, probably if not better, outside the box as well on the ball, both dribbling and passing. So, and that's not to take away anything from Kivior. He's been a great servant, especially last season when we needed him after Gabriel went down. He played really well. I think he's an amazing squad member to have, and he's on low wages, and we can never have too much depth, as we learned last season, because at some point you're gonna have an injury crisis, and you want to make sure you're deep enough in the really critical areas of the pitch. So I'm happy we're keeping him as well, as it seems. Mike, we should probably talk a little bit about Max Dallman as well. Someone said to me today, one of my friends texted me and said, as terrible as this preseason has felt, Max Dallman has been the shining light of the preseason. He's been probably our best player. And I texted him back and I said, yeah, if you say our best attacking player, I totally agree with you. And then I went back and I thought about that, and I was like, well, maybe outside Saliba. I think you have a case, and maybe you have a case anyways, that Max Dallman has been our best player, period. And that's an astounding statement to make when you think about the fact that he's 15 years old. He's my oldest son's age, which is insane to think about. I'm dumbstruck every time I think about that he's playing against, and as big as my 15-year-old is, if he plays against adults, he's getting manhandled. But Max Dallman, he's so calm, so cool, so unflappable. He's not scared of going up against these professional adults that are often 10, 15, sometimes 20 years older than he is. He's smooth on the ball. He carries the ball with such close control. He's earned us 2 penalties now in 2 games, 3 games, whatever. He's earned us a lot of penalties. He's been the lone bright spot that's been willing to take risks. And I've asked myself the question, and maybe you can help me understand where you're coming from in this, Mike. Is this a player that's just grabbing the opportunity because he's 15, he's got nothing to lose, and so why not express myself and show what I'm capable of? And he's got the cojones and the character and the personality to do so. Meanwhile, when you compare him to like the rest of the squad, maybe the rest of the squad's like, I just want to play, get my fitness up, and make sure I don't get injured. So does that account for just the discrepancy between the level that we're seeing between Max and the rest of the squad? Or is this guy so talented that we should be thinking about him as a significant contributor to our Premier League campaign this season?
I think now that he has the ability to play within England, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, there was a lot of mixed reporting regarding Dallman, saying that pretty much Champions League definitely not right. He hasn't hit the
not
age
until he's
part.
16. Yeah,
Not until he's 16.
December.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So okay, yeah. After the break, and we're qualified 5 games ahead, right? He'll play definitely.
Totally.
It would be an absolute shame he didn't play 90 minutes in the cups, in my opinion, if his body allows it. And the only reason I say cups and not the league is because I think that because Odegaard, Waneri, and him play all very similar spots. I don't know if I could say, I don't know how you justify taking minutes off of Waneri, but I feel like, you know how recently it came to fruition where like Arteta said like there's tiers in how they used to see players, and like, no, that's a tier 1 player, tier 2 player. And they kind of hinted at they're going to get away and do away with it and no longer view it like that. Based on merit, like there's plenty of people that make the argument that Waneri should start versus United, right? I mean, we saw the BX Gunner comment that I highlighted about Odegaard. Whatever you think about Odegaard, I think 100% is certain is Waneri is definitely viewed as the backup to him. So I just don't see how Dallman goes from player that barely gets to go on preseason, Waneri breaking into the first season. I don't see how Dallman overlaps him. I just don't see it, and I think that the possibility of getting him minutes are going to be so astronomical that we're not going to see it. I'm expecting a big increase on Waneri minutes.
Here's my hot take. Madueke plays more on the left, probably starts a good deal of games over there, and Dallman takes more of the backup minutes to Saka. And that's how you get him in. I just think he's playing way too well for us to have him play in the U21s. He's too good for it.
You just turned yourself into Ryan Arspog's favorite podcaster right now, considering that you suggested that Madueke should play on the left. It's a horn that he's been tooting since the very first minute that man was announced as an Arsenal player. So I'm gonna say yes to it, hot take or not. It's one of those things where like your rival fans and Spanish supporters, like they're literally saying, for fuck's sake, Arsenal got a Messi. So it's not just Arsenal fans hyping this kid up. Even if you speak to, like I say, you speak to Arteta, you listen to Arteta's post press conferences, and he can't fucking be more positive about this player. Like he's like completely blown away. So yeah, man, like I say this a lot, but as long as his body physically could take the toll, I would definitely. I went from we're probably never going to see him in the league to I'm really hoping we do, because we talk about a maverick like Eze. this guy's a flipping maverick. He opens defenses up. In the last few minutes that he played this game, he did exactly the same thing he did versus Newcastle, was attack and create massive headaches and open spaces and create chances. So does he deserve it, Chris? In my opinion, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. I think the moment of truth is if he plays in the Premier League, how he responds to that first bone-crushing tackle. Because right now we're in preseason, and outside of Joel Linton clotheslining him pretty hard, 30 seconds after getting on, he hasn't had to absorb the abuse that Saka takes day in and day out on that right-hand side. And I imagine a bunch of adults, when the games are on the line, are not going to take nicely to a 15-year-old embarrassing them. And so at some point, a left back's going to get embarrassed by Dalman, and he's not going to like it. And the next time Dalman gets the ball, he's going to take out Dalman and get a yellow card. And I think that will be, and I don't doubt Dalman's mentality for a second. What I do doubt, though, is a 15-year-old's body and how he responds to repeated kicking like that. I think that will be a big moment of truth in his young career about, is he ready for, 500, 600, 700 minutes in the league, or is, perhaps time, maybe in another league on loan, which I would hate to do. I don't want to give any other team a chance to get significant looks at him, because there's opportunity for his head to get turned. There's opportunity for, him to think, boy, I'll get more minutes playing somewhere else. I don't want to plant that seed in his head. I'd rather have him under our tutelage and our training so that he learns the way that we want him to play. Hopefully that means that he continues to express himself in the way that he is. And therefore, I hope develops at a quicker pace than he would if he were to go out on loan. But I think that will be an interesting moment if and when that happens this season.
Yeah, just touching one last little bit is I do think that there's literally a responsibility to protect him. I made the Messi reference earlier, but if you ask anybody taking the knowledge of Dalman's existence out of the equation, if you ask literally anybody and say, hey, is England more physical than in La Liga? And they're going to say 100% yes. They're going to say everything is faster, stronger, more physical. So because a Jamal at 16 could play countless minutes and get away with it, I do kind of slightly feel like it's one of those things where it's easier in a different league than in England. Maybe I'm making the English league into something it's not, but for a team, for a league and country that prides itself on their physicality, you got to apply it in all zones, right? So you can't have a 15-year-old playing against Joelinton fucking slapping him either. So there's a little bit of sense of responsibility about managing his career, and hopefully he's as level-headed as Saka's been, Mouse Lewis-Skelly's been, seemingly Waneri, and we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, they're really young, Chris, and to your point, it's so difficult to hit that perfect balance. It's really up to the player and his parents and the surrounding, and how he values things and what they're looking for. One of the things that said it reported was the French defender Jacques, something like that. He was linked, and he allegedly turned down the opportunity to play for the Arsenal. And if at that age is what he's saying to himself, they have Kivior, Gabriel, Calafiori, Saliba, and he says it's better for me to stay at this club right now where I'm playing. For me, I look at it like, hey man, props to you for being smart with your career, because there's plenty of players that, to your point, get their head turned and they make a decision based on a $50K a week raise right now, which I'm not going to criticize anybody but for doing it, because everybody has, I'm sure they're under immense pressure to help, especially if they're a first generation footballer. I'm sure they're under immense pressure that they might put on themselves to say, I'm going to get my family out of poverty. Absolutely. But at the same time, it's sometimes you chase that. Short term is a good thing. Long term, you end up in a really bad situation. I think before we move on from this, I thought it was funny because this only recently came out, and I don't know if the quote is recent, but it was a Patino quote. And he was kind of saying, like, watch out for all those minutes when you're young and make wise decisions. So from the outside, FIFA generation, thinking like, hey, a player could play any minutes possible, and that's not what you said at all, Chris. I'm simply saying, as supporters, we want to see that hill end and all that going on, but it's a harder balance than people think, I would assume. So hopefully he has a good head on his shoulders, good people at home, good people at the club, and we move forward and we get to see him for many, and I mean many years.
Yeah, your last comment made me think about our own Martin Odegaard, who left his club in Norway to play for Real Madrid at age 15 or 16, I think. So right around the same time that Dalman, the age that Dalman is right now, and what happened to him. He played a little bit at Real Madrid, but essentially what happened was he got lost in the mix and he got loaned out a bunch of times and only found his feet and his career back when Arsenal came calling. So while he was a prodigious talent, he was by every stretch of the imagination a very, very accomplished player at that age. If you see the stars too early and if you take that risk way too early, you can set your career back. Despite the fact that you might be getting a bag, you can set your career back and do some harm to it and need to be rescued by another club in order for you to find it again. So you'd hate to see a Dalman get his head turned, go to an even bigger club because they come calling, only to find himself not get the minutes, not get the support, not have the right fit, whatever the case might be, and not really get his career restarted until he's mid prime, which you hate to see. So yeah, all in all, it sounds like the club is going to do right by him. It sounds like he's got the right support group, his family, as you said, a lot of really good leaders. I've seen pictures of him on Instagram with looks like Rice has taken him under his wing a little bit. Odegaard, the same thing. Basically, the guys you would expect to play that leader kind of father role to him in the squad, and it looks like he's being well taken care of. So hopefully that continues, and hopefully he is able to contribute in the way that he wants to, but also can see the opportunity, but also can see that like there's a responsibility to do it in dosing, because if you don't dose it right, you can do irreparable harm to a player's career. Just look at Jack Wilshere, your favorite player, Mike, of all time, played way too much.
So much.
He played way too much too early, and he suffered a career full of injuries and a career that was stopped well before it should have because of those injuries. So
the man's up there with Bellerin and Danielson, all those youth, man. I can't get over them.
The Jack Wilshere of Arsenal podcast next year. Just watch Mike.
Yeah. I'm gonna boycott that one, dude. I won't let it happen. So, Chris, let's get into some of these questions. I'm gonna throw a curveball at you. There's one that's not on the notes, but last minute breaking news question that my buddy Ryan just asked me. He has another question that we may or may not get into, but it was curious and it's on topic, and that is it possible at all, from what you've seen yourself with Dalman and from what the club has seen with Dalman and how Arteta speaks about him, is it at all possible that he might potentially block us from the idea of potentially buying Eze? I think that this conversation kind of, if I'm not mistaken, it was this week or last week, Arsblog, that they suggested that the quality of Waneri was one of the reasons the club felt okay letting both ESR and Vieira leave last season. So do you think that's a possibility? We're bleeding into the questions. This is where a professional setup would have like a nice little transition and, hey, say we're back to part 2. We took a break and all that, but no, we don't do that, Chris. Diving right into it.
Yeah, we don't have any supporters, financial supporters, where we need to play their advertisements for us to take a break, Mike. We just got to keep going. So
yeah, absolutely. If there was I'm gonna create a Patreon, but I'm gonna stop it at 1 subscription, and it has to be Abreu. If it's not Abreu, my feelings are hurt. That is for sure.
The question's a good one, and I feel like I want to answer it from the club's perspective, but also from a fan's perspective. From a fan's perspective, I'd rather buy all the talent and figure out how to fit it in later. Honestly, I'm tired of us stopping short. I'm famous for saying on Twitter, this ownership group perpetually leaves us at least one player short of glory. And I feel like that has characterized the KSE ownership tenure for the last however many years, 20 years they've been here now. I'm ready for us to say we're going to buy maybe one or two more players than maybe we think we need, and we're going to fit it all together later, because at the end of the day, football changes really quickly. Players fall off cliffs when you least expect it. Players stop progressing when you least expect it. Look at ESR. We waited forever for him. Finally decided to sell him. What did he do last year? He didn't do much, and I know that breaks your heart, Mike. But Emil Smith Rowe we sing songs with him and Saka together, thinking that they were like the next greats from Hale End, and obviously Saka has become a great from Hale End. But Emil Smith Rowe never became that, and we couldn't wait around anymore to figure it out, and we couldn't stunt the growth of the club, and therefore any more transfers in that position waiting for him to come good. We had to make a decision, and I think bringing in more players creates competition. Looking at the Eze question specifically, he's 27. Who knows? Maybe by 30, when Dauman's fully ready to, I think, inhabit a role, make it his own, play most games, start and play 90 minutes, Dauman will be 18 years old when Eze is 30. A lot of stuff's going to happen in between now and then. And I think if you're saying I'm not going to buy an Eze because I'm worried about blocking Dauman's path, I think you're putting the cart way before the horse. Let's buy the talent we need to win stuff. If we win stuff, it's going to create a culture where players want to stay. A Dauman's going to want to be part of that if we win stuff, but we're not going to win stuff if we're saying with a serious posture that we don't want to bring in the difference maker, the potential difference maker, because we don't want to block a 15-year-old's path. That's not a serious, in my mind, that's not a serious posture to take. So if that's the reason we don't buy Eze, I'll be pretty disappointed. Having said that, from the club's perspective, we do this all the time. And I think a lot of times it's a convenient excuse for us to not make the moves we need to. I think it lets the ownership off the hook, to be honest. I think we are conservative to a fault. And I think their stated ambitions for winning all the trophies, and also their not stated ambitions, which I think we know to be true as billionaires, which is to grow the value of the asset that they own. The quickest way to grow the value of the asset you own is to win stuff. Because when you win stuff, commercial partners want to join you and they want to throw money at you. Oh, by the way, you make a lot more money in revenue. You make a lot more money in prize money. You make a lot more money in shirt sales. You make a lot more money in all these different avenues that increase the value over time of that asset. And all it takes is a little bit more investiture from the ownership group to do that. So I don't want to go off on a tangent on our ownership, but I don't think we should sit here and take that position that they may have about blocking a young, talented player's path as a serious one. I think there are other reasons for why they might say that. And I don't think it's because they're worried about blocking that player's path. I think there's other things to it.
I could not agree with you more. And just for the sake of consistency, Chris, you know how upset I was when they looked at when Arian said, "Hey, you're good enough to be Udegaard's, follow up," and I was like, "No, a club the size of the Arsenal should not be having a maverick teenager be the next one up to bat, so to say." So I was upset with that. And to your point, look, I don't quite want to be Chelsea. I don't want all the wingers.
Mm-hmm.
But I want options. So there's a nice in between spot there. So absolutely. About yourself, Chris, any questions you want to shout out my way?
Yeah. Well, since we're talking about young players, I like this one from Dean, who I don't think is in the live chat, but shout out to Dean. Thank you for the question. What is a realistic expectation for Dauman this year? What do you think, Mike? And we talked a little bit about it already, but maybe we can get into it more fully. Do you expect to see him playing in Europe? Do you expect him to play cup games? Do you expect him to start games in the Premier League? What do you think we should expect from him this season?
Okay, just to clarify, Chris, what do I think is going to happen, or because what I think and the expectations that I have are two completely different things.
What's a realistic expectation, a personal expectation from Mike Hers FC?
He plays the majority of the League Cup games, the first couple of rounds of the FA Cup games, and he doesn't get a sniff in the league.
Not
That
a sniff, meaning no minutes.
No minutes. Like I again, as barring of course, because we're injury FC. Assuming of course that both Udegaard and Waneri don't magically get into some really bad types of injuries, I think it's going to be one of those situations where Waneri was on the bench 2 years ago as well, right? Other than last season. And I think he broke a record for being the youngest player, and then we just didn't see him again.
Yeah,
and maybe that was a show of faith from Mikel Arteta. But during that season, I remember that was the season where we went through a period where we just started spanking teams 4-1, 6-1. We were even qualified in Champions League already. We didn't necessarily have to win this game versus PSV, and we still didn't see him. So my expectations are based on what I'm going to say recent history. And despite how good he is, I think Mikel Arteta is going to protect him at all costs. And I quite frankly, Dimitri said 400 PL minutes, rest cup games. That maybe I don't see it myself. I think this thing is about protecting him this season, letting him be in or around the squad, letting him know kind of what the situation is, what the life of a professional football player is, the travel, and then he has to get back to cup minutes. That is my I'm going to say reasonable expectations, but you know me, Chris, aim low, be happy.
Yeah, I think that's a very reasonable take. I think past precedent shows us that's probably the likely take. I think it's also because we have probably the deepest squad we've had maybe ever. I mean, I was thinking about if we buy Eze, but even if we don't, we're going to have to leave, assuming everybody's healthy, which is a big assumption, we're going to be leaving some fairly significant players out of a match day squad. If you do the numbers, I'm not going to do the math in front of everybody. I'm not going to count all the players, but do the math. Look at all the players we have. Even with the ones that we are assuming are going to be outgoings this summer, you're looking at someone like a Marino or a Kivior or somebody of that ilk missing match day squads if you decide you're going to fit Max into a match day squad. And so for that reason, it feels like a tall order. And then secondly, to your point, we've got Noni Madueke on the right-hand side that, we all assumed or expected was being bought to at least in part be Saka's backup. And we've got a logjam at creative midfield on the right-hand side behind Odegaard and Waneri. So I tend to agree with you in the league, injuries notwithstanding. But I think if I'm Max Dowman's camp and I've played as well as I have in preseason, I'm itching to get at least in the match day squad. Maybe I don't get on the pitch, but I want to be in some of those squads. I want to experience what it's like to be in a Premier League squad at 15. And whether I get in the pitch or not, who knows? But he's been banging down that door, and even more so than I think Waneri was at his age. And I think BX made this point. I know it's easy to fall in love with the shiny toy, the newest shiny toy. It feels like he's even better than Waneri was at this age. And if it's not this season, it'll certainly be next season that we'll see a lot of Max Dowman, assuming, again, he keeps progressing, keeps his head on straight, avoids injury, all that kind of stuff. So I think it's a reasonable take, Mike. But I do think, it'll be an interesting conversation we have in our season preview. One of the things I want us to do an estimate on is how many minutes do we think he'll get across all comps? Because I think that will reveal to all of us how much we think he's going to play this season, PL or not.
Okay, I like it. Yeah, I think it's the most reasonable thing based on history. And I think BX Gunner, yes, here's his live comment. Said Ethan needs more minutes. Sorry, there you go. Dowman is better than Ethan at the same age. His trajectory may need some fast tracking. So it may be. And I will say that the minutes that I imply that he may or may not be playing, is not based on how I rate him as a player. I'm simply looking at it more than anything is protecting him for his age gap is how I tackled that question is what I'm going to say.
Yep.
Here's a question for you, just because the season is fast approaching, Chris, from Gunnar Works, who is in the live chat with us today. What do you think will be our starting lineup for the season opener versus Manchester United? And look, if I'm going to narrow it down, I have two questions: Kai Havertz versus Gyökeres, Norgard versus Zubimendi. But feel free, fill in the gaps. Talk to me. What do you think? Surely we can't be missing this many players.
Oh no, again, assuming everybody's healthy, which is a big assumption. But it seems like Trossard's might even be available this weekend. Arteta has also said that Calafiori might also be available this weekend. Obviously Raya in goal. Although as an aside, Kepa's been very impressive this preseason, and I have no qualms about giving him some minutes in cup games, and for penalty kicks. I mean, I think he's been outstanding. So shout out to Kepa, former Chelsea player who actually might come good for us. Who knew? I think another interesting question is Timber versus White. Now, I don't think Timber is going to be ready to start by Man United. I mean, he got some minutes today. I thought he looked decent. I think he's going to need some more time to get match fit. If he was match fit, I'd probably play Timber, to be honest, because I think as good as Ben White has looked going forward, I think he's looked vulnerable in defense. And if we know that if Man United do anything well, and especially with the players that they're bringing in this summer, assuming that it'll be Sesko at center forward eventually, maybe not in time for our game against them, definitely not. But with Cunha and Mbeumo playing on the wings or running the channels, I'm not sure I want Ben White running backwards on a counterattack and defending 1v1. It doesn't seem like that's quite his game, as good as he is going forward. So I'd prefer Timber there. I just don't think he's going to be healthy. So I would go, I guess by default, it's going to be White at right back. It's going to be Saliba at right center back. I don't think Gabriel is going to be ready. He did not look quite fit today. You could see it on that goal that they got in behind. Not ready to play a high line, just doesn't trust his hamstring yet, nor should he. I don't want him getting re-injured in a preseason match. So if Calafiori's fit, I'd play Calafiori. Honestly, I think he's better in defense in the box. He's got more presence to him, and you don't miss out on anything on the ball. I'd play him at center back as a pairing with Saliba. Although I will say, and again, another player we haven't talked about today, Mosquera is going to be a problem for a lot of opponents. I am very impressed by Mosquera. I want to see more of him in cup games. I want to get him a lot of experience building a partnership in the back line, because I think he is going to be an absolute hoss back there. I'm very impressed with what I've seen so far. And then at left back, obviously by, I think, default, because I'm playing Calafiori at center back, I'm playing Miles at left back. In the midfield, I've got Zubimendi. We didn't buy him for that amount of money and have him bet in for this long in preseason not to play him. I think he speeds our tempo up. I think he is always available. I think he's good at progressing the ball. I think we'll see a better pressing Man United team this season, and we need press beaters, and I think he's a much more capable press beater than Norgard is. So I have Zubimendi at the base. We'll see Rice at the left 8 and Odegaard at the right 8. And then we'll have Saka. Boy, this is the question. The Gyökeres versus Kai. If it's me, I'm playing Gyökeres, because I really want to see him tear up United in transition, because I don't think United handled transition well. I think Arteta will play Kai, if I'm being honest, just because I think it's a known quantity, and I think he knows how Kai plays, at least for the first couple weeks. And I think we might see more of Gyökeres starting against certain teams, especially teams that are going to play open, like I think United will against us. And on the left-hand side, God, I mean, assuming we're not getting Eze in time, it's going to be Martinelli, but I'm not a fan. Sorry, Abreu. I'm not a fan, but I think he'll probably start at left wing, only because I think Trossard will eventually leave this summer. And if that's our commitment to seeing him out, I don't think we're going to want to play him in games where he's going to get injured and therefore we can't sell him. So Martinelli more so by default than anything else. That's going to be the 11 I think we'll see.
In my mind, in my mind, as far as the starting 11 goes, because I'm basing a lot of things based on like fitness levels, and in my head, even Gyökeres might not potentially be 100% fit. I was gonna make the joke that it's gonna be Gyökeres versus Šeško, but I don't even think Šeško plays first. They've done it before, but nothing indicates to me he hasn't played preseason. My understanding.
He's not even at United yet, and he's not been bought yet. So
yeah, I don't see it happening if it happens in the next week or so for him. What I'm going to say is the starting lineup versus Athletic Bilbao to me is going to emulate what is, to me, whoever starts that is the people that are deemed fit enough to start and are going to most likely play 60, 70 minutes. So that's a good indication for me, barring Kai Havertz, because he is going to miss a little bit of time training due to whatever niggle that he had recently that prevented him from playing. But yeah, I think that back line, Zubamendi's been playing the entire preseason. I think that back line for the most part is going to stay intact. The midfield three is going to get upgraded to the three that came in after, to your point, Declan Rice, Zubamendi, and Odegaard. With the Zubamendi thing, again, I'm going to say pending what happened on Athletic Bilbao, because I'm super curious about this. I think Dimitri was the one that said in the live chat, said if Norgard starts during the league, I'm worried. And that is excluding injuries, of course, for Zubamendi, but there's been no indication whatsoever that Zubamendi is injured. So I'm curious to see if he starts for Athletic Bilbao, and I'm curious to see if there's a physical motivation reason that he's not playing, if there's a tactical reason he's not playing. But again, this is a player that maybe he's not a shiny striker, but have no doubt about it, he was wanted by multiple big, massive clubs around the world,
including Real Madrid.
Yep. Including Real Madrid. So he's here to start when he's absolutely able to start. So I'm desperately hoping to see him play versus Athletic, start, because I do want to see him in the mix as soon as possible. But as Abreu said, so much contingent upon Zubamendi's getting a fast start.
That's
and
right.
we are very dependent on him right now to get his gears in motion. So, and maybe that's why Norgard is playing. It's because he knows the league. It could be that simple. But for a player of his quality, I would desperately hope that he would be in the starting lineup.
I think that knows the league is way overblown, especially when we're talking about a player of that quality. I'm going to say something perhaps controversial, but I think more so than any other player we have bought or will buy this window, outside of maybe Bradley Barcola, which I don't expect us to buy ever, let alone this window. I think Zubamendi is going to be the most transformative signing for us this window. I think his skill set is that important to how we need to play. And we keep saying we need to be more direct. We need to play at a higher tempo. We need to play more one touch. We need to play more switches of play. We need to change the point of attack. We keep saying these are the things that we need to do if we're going to be more attacking. He does every single one of those things. And he can easily be the technical leader on the pitch. Right now it's Odegaard, and Odegaard is a fantastic technical player. I think Zubamendi is that, and maybe even more from that kind of second passage of play, getting us up the pitch. And I think what he does is he simplifies Odegaard's role, so he makes Odegaard in theory better, because Odegaard has less to do, and he can focus more on what he does in the final third of the pitch. I think he's going to make our striker better, because those darting through balls he's going to find in transition quickly, not having to take 3 or 4 touches to be able to do so. And I think he's just always available. He doesn't hide. He's always looking to get on the ball. He knows the right pass to make every single time he gets on the ball. He's press resistant. I mean, a lot of people have talked about him like he's Sergio Busquets. I think that's a bit unfair. I mean, he's got a long career to go before anybody can start comparing him to that. But Busquets was so good at receiving the ball. You never knew what he was going to do with it. And I think Zubimendi has that kind of quality to him, such that teams can't press him. They don't know what he's going to do next. And at his best, I think that helps us in so many different avenues and so many different ways in the way that we want to play. So for me, I just went over the top quite a bit, but I think if we're going to win big things this season, Zubimendi has to be the guy that sets the tone. And I think he has all the ability to do so. He's got to stay fit, and we have to platform him in that phase of play.
Your turn, Chris.
Oh yeah, I'm not ready. Let's see. Looking through some questions.
This is what happens when we mix things up here. Chris throws us off.
I love it. Well, here, let me ask you this one. Well, no, I don't want to do another one from Dean. Hold on. I'll say that one for later. Let's do this one's from our buddy AJ, UF Gunner AJ. Was Marino a bad outlay of resources last summer? Even given his decent striker form, he's slow on the ball, can't run, and now makes it harder to get another creator in at left 8. That's a spicy one.
I know it. Look, I kind of agree with him as well, which is kind of driving me crazy. But the thing is, like literally, I've been more impressed with what he's done as a striker for us than as a left 8. And I know that seems like so damning, but the only thing I could hold on to was the fact that I've probably seen him play as striker more minutes than midfield. So I'm going to take a massive cop out and say that we don't have enough history there for us to make a firm, like, conclusive answer to that is what I'll say. Thus far, like Kai Havertz, you could make an argument that he was a failed midfield signing.
Yep.
But turned out to be a fantastic striker for us. Now, he has technical ability that people have been saying, been praising him since the young age of 16, 17 as well, right? As you said, coming out of Germany, he was being touted as being one of the next potential Ballon d'Or winners. So his technical abilities kind of was able to get him over that hump. But for the time being, I'm looking at like the midfield 3 that we have, and Mikel Merino is kind of sticking out in an ugly way. So remaining positive and hoping for the best type of situation. I don't like him playing a striker simply because he's, it's not what he does. He's never done it. And it was like a last minute thing for us. And it pained me. It pained me to see him a striker again. Like I literally think Mikel Arteta views him as a third option. And I definitely wish he didn't. I 100% wish he didn't. But thus far, he had like one goodish preseason game, which was to Newcastle versus scored over the
Newcastle,
game.
I think.
There you go. He does get forward. He does have the ability. He does have those late runs, like one of my old favorite players, Ramsey. Maybe not as aggressive, but he has good timing on the ball to get into the box. It's just about making those runs and hopefully having people give the ball to him so he could finish, because he does have a pretty good finish for being a midfielder. But other than that, man, it's one of those things where, like, I feel like you got to give it a little bit more time. It's kind of like Vieira. I think Tom Canton says this in the Gunnar Talk, in which he likes to give players 2 years prior to having like a very firm judgment on them. And like Vieira unfortunately didn't pass the test, right? Ended up getting loaned out, just wasn't working out for him. I think Merino, I'm going to say our recruiting staff and Merino deserve the opportunity to get one more season in which he has the opportunity of playing healthy and is an option in midfield for Mikel Arteta. Sorry, AJ, if that was a cop-out, my friend.
No, I mean, I feel the same way. I find him to be more convincing playing out of position as a striker than I do seeing him play in midfield. He's a bit clunky on the ball. He doesn't turn with the ball very well, although he does secure the ball fairly well. He's not an aesthetic player, which I know that matters to a lot of people. He doesn't look like a technical footballer, although he, is in many regards. He gets better the further up the pitch he goes, and that's not what I was expecting. I was expecting him actually to be better the further back he went, because maybe it's his size, but I always thought that he was going to be more of a 6'8" versus an 8 or like a 10 striker. But that seems to be, at least in our system, kind of the best position he's played so far. You're right, though, Mike, in that it's right to give a player 2 years to see how they bed in. I just don't know if what I'm seeing changes for a player that's 27, 28. He already is what he's going to be as a technical player. He's not going to get more technical. If anything, he's going to get less physical, because you start hitting your physical decline as a midfielder / striker around this time. So I don't know what to make of him, honestly. I think he's a great squad player, a good character. I mean, Jimmy makes a good point. Do we have a harder time convincing Submarino to come without his former teammate Marino here? It seems like Zubi was kind of indecisive before. I'm wondering if that had any bearing. I think he's a good dude. I think he's a great character. He played with Zubimendi at Sociedad. So did Odegaard, I think, for a little bit. I think their careers overlapped a bit. So maybe he had a hand in recruiting Zubimendi and in vouching for, this being a landing place for him. But if that's the value he brings, and that's the only value he brings, I'm not sure that's worth the $35 million we paid to get him in. So all that said, I think we should reserve the right to give him another season. I just don't know where he adds value this season, given the logjam at left 8, which is, I think, what he was recruited to play, and now the logjam at striker, which is where he played really well at the end of last season, but is not his natural position. One more thing I want to add on top of this, Mike, is I've been thinking about this today, and BX makes this point. I think others are hinting at it. One thing I think is really curious about the Arteta tenure since we've been here is how many players we've bought who have played one position and have been repurposed for another. And I think at best it's had mixed success. So you think about Mikel Merino, right? Bought surely to play in midfield, central midfield, whether you say it's a 6 or whether it's an 8, I don't really care. It's clear his best position is at striker, at least so far since he's been here. Same thing with Kai. We know he was bought. I believe he was bought to play central midfield, attacking midfield. He seems like a kind of a 10-ish player to me, but he's been played most, and I think he's probably played his best ball at striker. Think about Ben White, center back, repurposed into a right back. You think about Miles Lewis-Skelly, central midfielder by trade, a DM, I believe, at in the academy, repurposed to left back. Same thing with Calafiori, played center back, but has been repurposed into a left back. Declan Rice was a center back in his academy, played DM, a 6 at West Ham, repurposed into a more of an all-action box-to-box midfielder. There's so many examples where we have bought players who have played one position at another club or even in our academy and have been repurposed into a different position. And I don't know what the point I'm trying to make from that, other than I think it's curious. I mean, there's the famous example from Wenger's era where he bought Lauren, right? And Lauren was not traditionally a right back. I believe he was a winger or maybe a attacking midfielder. I don't really remember, but I know his natural position wasn't a right back. And Wenger said, "You are going to play right back." And he became one of the best right backs of that era. In the Invincibles, won multiple titles, had a very successful career at Arsenal. But I can't think of too many other situations where Wenger took a guy who played a different position at another club and repurposed him in a different position. He's one of the few that come to mind. this seems to be a hallmark of Arteta's approach to squad building. And if he hit a home run almost every time, I'd be like, this dude's a genius. Unfortunately, he hasn't. And I'm left feeling a little bit about this window as if we've not bought the player in the role that they have played for the positions that we've needed. If Madueke is the left wing solution, and I just said that 30 minutes ago, I'd like to see him in the left wing, but absent of another incoming player to come and play left wing, like a Barcolo, who I'd love, or even an Eze, who doesn't play left wing, he's a central midfielder, attacking midfielder, we're going to be yet playing a player whose natural position is right wing and repurposing him on the left. And I just hope that that's a move that works out, because so far we've had 50% success in doing so with players in this squad. And I don't want to see us burning yet another 50 million on a player who is being asked to play in a position that is not his best. So I don't know exactly what to make about all of that. It's an observation, but it does leave me feeling a little bit unsettled about some of our squad building and whether or not the squad building has been focused enough with enough clarity.
It kind of made me think about a text that I sent my buddy Ryan a few weeks ago, where it said, I say this tongue in cheek, maybe his talent idea is just not great compared. Like maybe like he falls in love with Aura or something, because he went in Mason Mount over Kai. Nobody wants Mason Mount. He went in Martinez over Zinchenko. I think Zinchenko won that one. He went in Modric versus Trossard. They gave him a Trossard. I think that one worked out pretty well for us. Sesko Gyökeres, that's still up in the air. And Raya, I would say Raya's a better goalkeeper than Ramsdale right now. But I mean, those are reported players that he wanted versus reported players we got. And I think for the most part, Kai Zinchenko and Trossard, people are substantially happier with them than Mason Mount, Martinez, and Mudryk. One thing that BX Scooter and Hamtumi both pointed out in the live chat, just piggybacking on what you said, was he doesn't buy specialists. And this is what the point I was trying to hammer home a little earlier today when I mentioned Gyökeres, where I said he's a specialist. He shouldn't be expected to play the Kai Havertz role. And then Antumi, and I think we've voiced this in the past, where it says that Teta does value versatility. And I do think that's something that he absolutely loves, a footballer that's capable of playing in multiple positions, and he just continues to do that. So, but it is a curious thing to point out, and I don't think it's completely out of there. Abreu says, well, it's either Martinelli or Noni at left wing. So
choose your fighter.
Yeah, choose your fighter. So it is going to be pretty interesting to see who makes it. But I don't think it's something that we have to worry about week 1 or 2, because I don't think he's gonna make it to be fit enough. Whilst we're on the left flank, because you mentioned it, Chris, I do. Here's a question from the Gunnar Nick, a good buddy that I've recently linked up with in a different group. How do you solve our left wing problem if Rodrigo isn't an option? So, assuming we're not going to splash 100 on Leao, Rodrigo, I'm being exaggerated with that quantity. Assuming that, and I'm going to piggyback the Eze thing that the Chug entered. Is Eze really the answer to our problems, or would a pure left wing be a better option? So, trying to rope in both of them. That one is from our good mate Dean. And if Rodrigo isn't the option, how do we fix the left flank?
I mean, I said this name earlier, and I'm on record as saying he would be my number one buy this summer. It would have been Bradley Barcola. And I continue to believe that he would transform our left side, because he is, if you want to play a left winger who plays on the touchline and beats a man one-on-one or even 1v2, he is probably the best guy available. He's better than Rodrigo. I think he's the best left winger. He might be the best left winger in the world, to be honest. And he might be better than Vinny Jr., to be honest. So the problem has been PSG has publicly said he's not for sale, but we're also hearing reports that Liverpool may test that theory. And if he goes to Liverpool, it's game over for everybody for a long time. So he would be my first solution there. I think, again, absent of a tactical change in how we play, that's who I'd be looking to bring in. We are owned by KSE, so it's not happening. We've spent too much money this summer. I would gladly sell Trossard and Martinelli if that funded Bradley Barcola, and I would gladly have him on the left wing, play Madueke as the backup on that side, as well as the backup to Saka, and then incorporate a bit more of a Max Dowman or Ethan Nwaneri as some other depth at the wing spots, and that would make me very happy. But that's not going to happen. So if we bring in Eze, if there are plans to play Eze on the left wing, I think we play differently off the left. And I think what happens is Eze plays more centrally, because I don't think he's a touchline winger. Now, can he do it? Probably. He's very tricky with the ball at his feet, but I think he plays better as he gets more central. He's a great decision maker. He has an eye for a pass. He's got great vision. He always makes the right decision, whether it's shoot, pass, dribble, etc. He's an excellent ball carrier. He can score both feet, outside the box, inside the box. And I want that kind of quality, though, nearer to goal, more central to goal. So if he plays, I would imagine he would play the left wing role as more of a wing forward, kind of like what a little bit how Mo Salah plays, where he's not a touchline winger that receives the ball on the touchline and then dribbles in. He plays more of that kind of lane 4, where he's playing more of in an inside channel, and he might have a runner on to the outside of him to create space. I would imagine that we would ask either our left 8 to make overlapping runs, or maybe even ask one of our left backs to do so. Again, we've never done that before under Arteta, but I just don't see Eze being the kind of player that is pushed out to the touchline, playing that kind of traditional left wing role, and doing his best impersonation. That's just not what you buy Eze for. You buy a traditional left wing to do that. So if we do buy Eze and he doesn't play that role, then I think what we're looking at is Madueke on the left. And what we'll tend to find with Madueke is that he has a better dribble. He's plays more direct and more effective at doing so. I mean, all the stats say this from his time at Chelsea. And what it'll probably mean is that he's going to be equally threatening, both in terms of dribbling centrally and getting a shot off with his wrong foot, or dribbling to the baseline and getting a cross off on his strong foot, which may give us a different dynamic from the left-hand side. But until we see it with more regularity, with more minutes, with partnerships developed, it's all just kind of theoretical. So yeah, if you ask me today, would I rather have Eze or a Barcola? Hands down, I'm taking Barcola all day, every day. I love Eze, but I think our needs in this squad are less about another attacking midfielder, because I think we've got enough of those. And I think we need an out-and-out true elite left winger. And I feel like there's really only one that's out there, and I think it's Bradley Barcola. So I went way over the top on him, but I am convinced that he is special. And unfortunately, he's playing behind another absolutely special left winger in Kvaratskhelia, who PSG also have, who we should have bought. So,
real. Talk about talented and attacking. One thing I just want to point out, just because I didn't bring this up during the Villarreal game, is that Madueke will be something refreshing on the wing. He's going to come good. And you mentioned how creative of a player he is. I'm going to completely throw this off, and I just want to make a quick little reference. I have no fucking clue why the fans booed Pepe, but Pepe always struck me like a player that if he would have only assumed the role better, he could be a massive pain in the ass for defenders, and I think he's a little bit underrated and was treated slightly unfair by the media based on his output versus what they're claiming he is. They booed him and they blame Dennis Suarez, who kicked the ball for 30 seconds for us. I didn't understand that, but the Pepe thing, just watching him drive our defenders crazy. If you look at his goal catalog for the Arsenal, they're pretty nice goals. And I just thought he's one of those Maverick players, and he's one of those players that I always like to jokingly say Prime Messi wouldn't have a spot in Mikel Arteta's team. Same applies for Pepe, in which he's one of those players that he's such a Maverick type-ish player that if you're not defending, it's like there's something within Mikel Arteta saying that's not going to work for me, bro. I need you. What are you doing off the ball? That's all I really want to know. It drives me slightly nuts, but just because the Madueke conversation came up and you mentioning a Maverick like Barcola, I just thought about Pepe and the booing, and I just didn't understand it whatsoever. But I believe
how ironic that one of the first players that we hounded out was exactly what we need back in the squad, which is a Maverick personality. And I mean, Eze is that, Barcola is that, Rodrigo is that. We need it in spades. We need it to mix up this team. We need a little bit of chaos. We need a little bit of breaking the structure that I think has massively raised our floor, but has limited our ceiling. And I think we've just gotten the balance wrong. You know, if you guys don't follow, what's his name? Carpenter, last name Carpenter, Billy Carpenter on Twitter. He's an awesome follow. And he said something I thought that was really insightful. He said, some managers manage to avoid the worst thing that's ever happened to them, and some managers manage based on like the best thing that's ever happened to them. And so far it feels like that game against Manchester City where they beat us 4-1 and Rob Holding was getting run to death against Kevin De Bruyne, I think scarred him so much that he never wants to lose that way again. And so he's made a lot of decisions to make us very, very solid, you know, dual winners, physical in midfield, out of possession, hounds will chase down anything, hardworking. All that stuff has massively raised our floor, right? We've finished second 3 years in a row. That's really difficult to achieve in this modern day Premier League. But what we're missing is that little bit of technicality, that little bit of, I have no idea what you're about to do, and that's okay. And I think, again, we need that massively right now in certain areas of the pitch. And I think it's why we didn't score as many goals last season. Again, I know we had injuries. I know that, you know, there were other things, referees, et cetera, that limited that last year. But we're going to lose a lot of games 1-0, 2-1, games we shouldn't have lost that we're going to lose if we can't find that little bit of unpredictability in our attack from some place somewhere. And I think it has to come from outside the club right now because I don't think we have it. I don't think we have enough of it right now in the current squad.
Right. So forget Rodrigo, alone Pepe. I figured it out, boys.
But you're right. That was classless to boo Pepe. It's probably all those foreign fans they let into the stadium today.
And he said like he didn't even celebrate the goal. Like I don't necessarily feel like Pepe owes us anything, and he didn't celebrate the goal. And I was like, and I thought to myself, it's a friendly, okay. Like, you know, your stay at the club wasn't immense, but I appreciate him like loving and respecting the club, and it just caught me off guard. So. I completely digress, Chris. I'm going to give you the last question of the night, as you are my guest.
Ooh,
I say my guest. I don't know at what point in time you cross over from guest to just being a co-host, because obviously you've been here for 199 episodes. We're getting close to that 200 mark, by the way.
Are we?
Mind you, the math thing might potentially not be mathing entirely, because I know that there was a few that were uncounted for. So we may be over, we may be slightly less, but on paper we're at 198 right now, according to my thumbnail that I'm making.
Well, according to Magic, we're not going to make it 8 years, so we should count our blessings, Mike.
Yeah, I'm going to stop podcasting when Mikel Arteta's not at the club anymore. I said many years ago that he was going to be at the club 10 years at the very least. I was looked like a madman, and he's slowly creeping up. So once we hit that 10-year mark with Mikel Arteta, we'll have our statue built outside the Emirates as well. We'll just move on to new pastures.
Well, I mean, at the very least, our mugs should be up on that artwork outside the stadium. You know, I mean, I mean, I think if you hit 200 episodes, you should be painted in there after the fact. Anyways, I feel like we've talked about most of these. I added a question at the very end, so I'm going to do the self-serving thing and ask my question, Mike, if that's okay.
You dog. Yeah,
I
no.
know.
I could see what all jokes aside, I could see why. I will say we did cover AJ's, some Deans, some Marsh Bros. Shout out to Sporty J, who was in the live chat a little bit earlier and is an avid listener. His question was, last year our captain had a disappointment season. Now healthy and added players, how can he unleash his talent? Referring to Odegaard. We covered a lot about the attacking midfielder, how we were expecting him to play more, how we're expecting Zubimendi to be able to unleash the ball forward a little bit more, and hopefully to find the runs on a very healthy and very speedy Gyökeres. So that is my super fast summary, just because we pointed out and joked around on Twitter today. We don't have a massive following, so the fact that people listen to us and are willing to engage and have these questions, massive appreciation on my end. So Sporty J, thank you so much for the question, my friend.
Good call, Mike. Great question. And yeah, I'm sure we'll have lots of conversations about Odegaard this season, because I think to Sporty's point, I mean, our whole attack has been centered around him, and he's been doing the work of 1.5 players. And I think to his detriment, I think it's been too much. I think we've overburdened him with the primary creative role in this squad, and bringing in more creativity, bringing in more Mavericks will, I think, take some of the attention from the opponent's defense away from him, which I think will give him more space to do his thing. I think he's a better player than he showed, and I think he's gotten a lot of stick for things that perhaps have been largely outside his control. Here's my last question, Mike. With the launch of the third shirt this last week, and all the fanfare around it, we got to see the massive advertising campaign, all the photos. I know you're a guy who loves a black shirt, Mike, and this is more of a white shirt, an off-white shirt. What's your opinion of the new third shirt? Do you like it? Do you think it's going to look good on the players? Do you think we'll see it much this season? How does it go down in terms of the iconic shirts we've seen in the Adidas era for you?
Yeah, any white kit is the anti-Mike kit, I would say.
You're the wrong person to ask this question.
It's actually, look, it's based on literally one of my favorite kits that Arsenal have. You know this. I have a Fabregas one. It used to be a Nike kit. Now it's an Adidas kit. I absolutely love the color. I love the embroidery in it. I like the color scheme. It's difficult for me to get over the collar, because I absolutely hate the collar. I joke around and say, hey, if I wanted to wear a collar, I'm going to wear the collar at work. But there's plenty of iconic kits like that famous yellow one with the Invincibles. Nobody will ever look at that yellow kit and say it's ugly, despite having a blue collar. So overall positivity, I'm going to say it's gorgeous, man. And I'm willing to say, if I was roughly 20 to 120 pounds lighter, I think I would wear the shit out of that kit, Chris. But yeah, not a big fan on collars on kits. Will I pick one up? Solid maybe. Still
solid maybe. Wow.
Just to still have it in my collection. So I still very much like it. And as crazy as it may sound, because I hate all the A's on the home kit. If the home kit didn't have all the A's, if it didn't have all the A's, dude, I would definitely say it's my favorite kit. Even with the collar, I would say the third kit is my favorite kit of this season.
Wow.
So mixed feelings, man. I was so gutted when I saw the picture. It was Russo, I think. She was sitting down, so you couldn't see it was a crop top. But there's a version of it with like a more traditional, just rounded off collar. And I was like, oh my God, they made a version without the actual collar. And then I go to online and I figured out it's a crop top. And I could pull out a lot of things off, Chris. I don't think I could pull off a crop top.
Mike, for your next birthday, we're going to buy you the crop top, and we expect you to wear it to every podcast.
Or just give it a few weeks and buy it like a fifth party market off of China. They'll have like a stamp and still that's like 80% accurate on it. They'll just like misspell Emirates or something. And I'll wear that one. But overall, man, despite the collar, I'm going to say, in my opinion, probably the best one this season. Yeah.
I mean, I think My opinion on the third shirt is that it's a beautiful shirt. I think you're right, Mike. I think they took their inspiration from that 2008 kit that Seth Fabregas scored a kind of goal in. I can't
I
remember
love that. I love
who
that
it's
he's the
against,
player, by
but
the way.
he
Like,
is.
despite all the animosity that some
Yes,
supporters have, I love that everybody's like, "Oh yeah, the Fabregas kit." Like that's what
totally.
people think
It
when they.
is.
I love that, dude.
I love that it's despite the fact that it's white and it's the color of our quote unquote rivals. Someone made a point, I think it was Tim Stillman that made the point that it used to be one of the primary colors of our kits pre 1960s. So it is part of our history, the white kit. It's just that we haven't worn it much since then. We've had green, we've had obviously the famous red and white in our home kit. We've had blue, we've had yellow. The white is kind of a harkening back to an era of time that was over 60 years ago, but it is part of our history. I love the design and woven into the texture of the white fabric. I think that's really smart looking. I like collars in general on kits. My one hesitation on it is that it lays flat, and I have a feeling that it's not going to look right on a lot of people. That's my one hesitation. But I've got a buddy who just bought it, and because he buys every kit, and he's going to wear it to the Man United meetup that we're going to go do. And I want to see what it looks like on him before I buy it. But I love the look of the kit. I think it's going to look great in the players. I actually just bought the authentic version of the home kit because, unlike you, I love the A's in the design, and I think it's one of the better executions of our home shirt under the Adidas era. So I'm looking forward to wearing the hell out of that one. I'm supposed to be getting it Friday, so I'll probably wear it next week on our podcast. But yeah, I love the kits this season. I might even buy the away kit, although it's my least favorite of the three. But I think it would be a great series of kits to win a major trophy in. I think they deserve a trophy. I think we deserve a trophy, and it would be a shame if we went trophyless with those three kits. I'm just saying. So
Yeah, I was just thinking. I was looking at this color scheme. It's not the first white kit that Adidas gave us. They gave us
oh yeah, the marble kit.
the marble kit, which in hindsight, again for me, I love the shit out of the kit. I ended up really liking it. Initially, I saw the patterns and stuff. I was like really off-putting. I never got over the fluorescent kit one. I never was like, oh, can't wait to wear that one. Sebi did, I believe, but Sebi's a collector of kits. But I never fell in love with that one. But the red marble one I loved, and this one is just absolutely amazing, man. So I love it. I think that's it for tonight, Chris. You wanna give yourself an out since it's just you and I. It's gonna be short and sweet.
Yeah, West Suburban AFC. Looking forward to the season starting. Although I was a little bit more excited before this last game. But you can't ask for a better start to the season than at Old Trafford. So let's win there. I think it'll be a soothing balm to a lot of, I think, the anxieties that we all feel going into this season. Let's also beat Athletic Club. What is it, Saturday? Because that would also, I think.
Then we can annoyingly just reply to every single fan, Wara Trophy.
Wara
Trophy. I think that's how that works.
I think that's how that works. So yes, I am still excited. I was very burnt out last season. Glad for the break, but I'm ready to be hurt again. So up the Arsenal.
I do find that amusing, man. Yeah, the season ends. You're just a broken man, and you're like, never want to do that again. And you're exhausted, and I just think to myself, man, if we're exhausted following them, what are the players thinking? Like,
100.
having to make that chase and be the first in decades. I'm like, Jesus, it must be crazy. But I digress one final time for the night. I've been Mike Hers FC. I've been Mike Hers. You can find me at Mike Hers FC on the Twitters. You can find this podcast on YouTube, as the people in the live chat knows, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts for you Audioheads. Please, please, please tell a friend. And if you're on Twitter and you follow us, kind of share and retweet our stuff, because it would be nice if we could grow a little bit more this season. We've had some nice success every time we bring on the lovely, wonderful Mike McDonald. he brings a lot of eyes to our podcast, and we're always shocked that people actually stick around. So just something to consider. If you want to support us, hit the like button on the way out, all the YouTube stuff. Live chat, you have been absolutely awesome. Thanks so much. Till next time. Peace.
Right foot this time, Martin Odegaard.
Zinchenko from Ketty, it's 4. Martinelli tiptoeing in. Predatory, perfect. There is a gorgeous arrogance about Arsenal now.
It really is. They are enjoying every second of this.